Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock, so we're going to begin. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district business, and it's not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda, and upon request to the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with disabilities to be able to participate in this meeting. Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Albright. Here. Mr. Arnold.
Here.
Mrs. Bergerly.
Here.
Mrs. Greatorex. Present. Ms. Kangas. Mr. Lundy.
Here.
Ms. Guerra. Here. Ms. Beneteau. Here. Mr. Watson.
Here.
We have meeting minutes. The Board of Education approved the minutes from August 26, 2024 as presented. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and moving on to the approval of the agenda. The board policy provides that the superintendent of schools shall prepare an agenda for all board meetings as directed by the president of education.
I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? And tonight we are beginning with school presentations. We have representatives from Michigan Red Cross, Jerry Abahuro and Len Resmersky. We'll recognize Dexter High School for collecting 164 pints of blood during the 2023-2024 school year. And I'd like to welcome you guys to take this down.
Thank you.
I'm not a lawyer, it just like happens.
Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. We're honored to be here. My name is Len Resmersky, 55 years public school educator in the state of Michigan, 20 years as superintendent before retiring. I've been on the American Red Cross board for the last 15 years. Now also serving as the chair of the Biomed Committee of Red Cross, which is where all the bribes come from, our planning. And obviously I have a bias to the schools. So 5 years ago, we created what's known as a certificate of recognition in the 105 districts that we work with directly. And we're very honored this evening to announce that Dexter was one of only 11 that made the threshold with us. And this is not the first time. And Jerry will be more specific with some data that's well earned and observed. But just on an overall perspective, we are dealing nationally, as you can well imagine, with the fires in California, the hurricanes in Florida, the tornado that hit in Kalamazoo and Portage that hit our school, public schools, homes. The Red Cross in our area employs folks. In fact, we're short about 190 people right now to help out in Florida, because then you're commissioned to go, you're trained 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months. But the need is horrific. And I can say that the need for blood is now at 20% global, by 20% country, but for obvious reasons. The needs are everywhere. So we're very honored that school districts, especially in this instance, Dexter Public School District, Dexter High School, as you said, 160 pints. We know that through medical practices, 1 pint of blood saves 3 lives. So when you multiply that out, you get the much more dramatic impact of how valuable this is to have as a resource. So we're honored again to be here to recognize and honor Dexter. Only one of 2. I won't mention the competition. Although I heard rumors about that, but we won't get into that. But only 2 in Washington. So I'll be talking with the superintendents hopefully in the upcoming ISD meeting about this issue. So we're honored to recognize you. And with that, let me introduce Jerry Abigor, who is the account manager for Dexter Schools and for some number of years.
Jerry, yeah, thank you so much. Hi. So I'm trying to get to meet you guys. It's been a long time. I've been your representative now 24 of the last 27 years. I want to take a moment to tell you how great the town is. During the Great Recession, and it started in 2007, in 2010, we had started in 2007 something called the Summer Scholarship. Back in those days, a student could earn $1,000 or up to $1,000 for running a blood drive for us. Some of them ran 2. Dexter is the only town in all of the United States that ran a blood drive for us. And when it was brought to my attention that the leaders of Dexter High School wanted to run a blood drive every Monday of the summertime, it kind of caught my attention, like, because we're in the process of thinking we need every 56 days. Every 56 days, a donor can donate blood. Back then in 2007, Facebook was in its infancy. I think that was the year it was launched, so it was extremely popular. So we asked ourselves, what is the real propensity for an adult or a student to donate 56 days in the summer? Students know, don't they have a group of friends and relatives that want to donate? The answer was yes. So we went for it. So we really had no choice. It was not like the pandemic back then. The Great Recession, as you probably remember, was pretty awful. Parents were looking for any kind of way to get income for their kids to get them to schools. Our unemployment rate went up to 20% once upon a time in Michigan, so we're looking for funds. I want to say that every single blood drive we had in the summers of 2007 through the summer of 2010, every student was successful except for 2 in getting a threshold of 31 units of blood, which they got $500 check from us to the school that they were going to. Like I said, some of the students ran twice that summer. It was phenomenal. Dexter was the only school in the United States that even attempted something like that. I spent 1 year in Arizona. My parents lived doing the same job in 2012, 2013. When I floated that idea, obviously they heard of Dexter before. I told them how great Dexter was over there. They were completely shocked that any high school would attempt such a thing. I live in Farmington still. My wife, 2 kids, and the 3 Farmington, now 2. I've never attempted that either. So great kudos. You actually deserve, if we can actually make one, we can actually deserve a 6-foot plaque for you guys. The ability to save lives in those days, from the year 2007 to 2010, is well over 3,000 units from Dexter schools alone. From Dexter High School to Mill Creek Middle. We would love to run one here at Bates. We've never run one before. We have something called a pint-sized program. It's kind of left on the wayside for a little while. We'd love to introduce that again. We'd love to run more blood drives in Dexter. One other footnote has nothing to do with schools. When the pandemic hit in April of 2020, St. Joe's Church here was the very first place in all of Southeast Michigan to open their doors 7 days a week. And in collecting, your community is quite amazing. It really is. This community is very loyal to us when it comes to blood donors, and we cannot thank you. It got us through the Great Recession. Many people in Dexter donated during Hurricane Katrina, as they did Hurricane Michael just a couple years ago. It's just wonderful. These 2 plaques honor Dexter High School and honor Dexter Community Schools, but honestly, you deserve a lot more than that. Many lives have been saved here. Nothing the greatest to be proud of. Thank you so much.
We have the principal of Dexter High School as well as our student representatives. I'd like to invite all of you to come up and introduce yourselves.
Hi. Oh, great.
I'm Sarah.
President.
Oh, you're president?
Yeah.
We need to talk. We're gonna need to talk.
Thank
I'm
you.
Lauren, I'm the
Hi,
senior budget chair.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Lauren.
I'm sure you know Julia Berkowitz.
We do.
She's amazing. Lauren. Lauren Hart. Yes.
Yeah.
I met you one time before. I did that amazing work.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. Thank you.
But oh, hi. Hi, finally get to meet you. Nice to meet you. But it's thanks to you. Thanks to you and thanks to Dexter High School. Thanks to Dexter Schools, period. Thanks to Dexter, period. Yes, you have cleaned Chelsea's club. I mean, close. So,
I'd also like to elevate Deb Marsh, the advisor for.
Deb Marsh is amazing. She has really helped us out. I'm sorry I forgot to mention her. She's really amazing, Deb Marsh, and for her Cheryl Wells as well. Cheryl was the one who really pushed hard during those summers in the Great Recession to get us through. So maybe your older brothers and sisters will tell you. It was great. Thank you.
Can I get a picture with
Yes,
all
of
you?
course. Yes, please. So,
It's fine if you guys want to stand out here.
See everybody.
Go for it.
yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Way to go, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, when do you guys do your business cards?
Oh, yes.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. And now we have a curricular update from Executive Director of Instruction, Brian Reeder.
Follow that up, Brian.
I don't say anything. I was part of those 2007 boys, right? No, 2007, so we'll have. I told that gentleman I never did donate. I volunteered. I would run kids back and forth, but Blood and I do not get along, so that would have been bad news. That's the reason. School because of the S is ahead of us. Oh, it was me? I don't know. I will say though, Craig and I, both in first responder situations, we're really good at directing traffic and making sure EMS knows where to go. Getting involved in the open head wounds is not our gig. Both of us, neither of us can do that very well. I paid 2 patients. That's right.
Yeah.
We know our strengths, Mr. McCall. Yes, we do. All right, thanks for bearing with me as I get this up. Was asked to do a quick overview of some of the curriculum instruction and updates that have been going on since this summer and into the 24 school year. So really pleased to do that today. The big one I'd like to talk to you all about, I'm sure, sorry, slide it here. I'm sure you've heard something about it. It's the Summit to Gradient Transition in grades 5 through 8. So as many of you are aware, we've had a partnership with Summit for the last 8 years. We had 2 years of pilot here in the Dexter Community Schools before we worked to adopt and bring on Summit as part of our 5th through 8th grade program. On a given year, between 35 and 55% of our 5th through 8th graders participate on Summit platform in some capacity. Summit had recently undergone some changes internally. One of those changes was a name change. So Summit has rebranded. The name Summit came from the Summit District out in California. And in an attempt to kind of separate themselves and respect the boundaries of the district, the entity Summit Learning, they changed it to Gradient Learning. So that's why you see Gradient now as opposed to Summit. With that, there has been not only been a new name and a new logo, but the Summit has worked to update their curricular resources. So all of their curricular resources are now externally validated as opposed to curated curricular resources. They've also switched their LMS or their learning management system from an internal system that they created. They hired engineers from Facebook to create. Now they're utilizing Canvas. And the impetus behind that decision was they kind of hit their maximum in terms of what their platform could do. As they started to look around, they knew that Canvas had a lot of capacity and a lot of capability for some of the metrics they were hoping to capture and some of the data analysis they were hoping to give to their districts. So they made the full switch to Canvas. All of this big switch occurred over this. We became privy to this information last year. Canvas started to tell us Gradient started to tell us some of these changes would be coming, but we didn't have a ton of details. A team of about 20 of us went to summer training in Chicago this year for 6 days. It was a really thorough, really great training. Multiple days were on new curricular resource, and then 3 days were on kind of ideology, philosophy, as well as the platform to better understand better Canvas. So it's a really thorough training that they facilitated. Gradient's doing this really interesting thing that they're shifting their focus to what they're calling the whole student vision or the whole student initiative. And so with that, they are working to update their curricular resources. As I've shared, math is now utilizing illustrative math. We've been using that for 2 years now in Summit, but now that will be full-time in Gradient moving forward. In our ELA, reading and writing, all of our 5th through 8th graders in Gradient will be utilizing EL education, which is an open source curriculum. It's terrific. It is more thematic and module based. So the students, the whole class will be reading a text, but there's also individual texts that students have access to and will be reading as well. In science, we're making a transition to Open SciEd, which is an inquiry-based science model. So as opposed to teaching more direct instruction, a lot of Open SciEd is inquiry-based. So students are creating the labs, they're putting the materials together, and they're working to create. Our teachers were really excited about what they saw with Open SciEd. The enthusiasm for sciences is through the roof. In social studies, they've been teaching, they will be teaching investigating history and OER, depending on their grade level. So again, both of these are a little bit more inquiry-based and just a little bit more student and teacher-friendly curricular resource that we're utilizing. OER. OER is a project that has been utilized through the University of Michigan, actually. There's a team that's been developing, but they're essentially open source social studies, so anyone would have access to the curriculum. They're organizing more of a project-based learning type action. In terms of student outcomes, Summit previously had what they called their habits of success. And so those habits of success look pretty similar to our Dexter competencies. In fact, when we create our competencies, we looked at the habits of success to cross-reference and say, where is their overlap? The habits of success were terrific for us, and they really inspired our competency and the competency work that we're doing. There were numerous, way too many, to remember, to be honest. So Gradient has worked to narrow it down to what they're calling their 5 key student outcomes. And those are resilience, agency, curiosity, purpose, and self-direction. And the really cool thing about the 5 that they have kind of elevated as the most important student outcomes, you see overlap on our helm perfectly, right? So the move that Summit made, Summit now Gradient made, really aligns nicely to the work that we're doing as a district. One thing we've learned over the last 8 years is a lot of the effective practice that we utilize in Summit started to look more and more similar to what we would deem our Pinnacle or our Apex classes, and vice versa. Our Pinnacle and Apex classes were absolutely influenced by Summit programming. And so the programming pathways that once upon a time were very distinct have started to meld and really been more similar in years past. This is another way that the paths are a little bit more similar, which we see as a positive thing. In terms of educator practices, Gradient has then worked to develop and communicate educator practices that align with student outcomes. And again, that's what we're doing as well. We have an instructional framework that aligns with our learning continuum, our competencies, right? So what we know is if we're going to allow students an opportunity to demonstrate resiliency, these are teaching strategies we can utilize to put them in that position and support them. So the work that we're doing as an organization, we're seeing mirrored in Gradient, which again is really reaffirming and it's really been great to streamline the process. There's also a consistent platform now, which is super nice. Previously, we had students on multiple platforms. So if you were a student at Mill Creek, you maybe were on Summit for most of your day. And then when you go to electives, you might have to switch over to Canvas. Now, all of our students are on Canvas. So 5th through 8th grade, all students are utilizing Canvas. Where it does get a little tricky, and this is something that we as the educators, I think, are having a harder time with the learning curve than students. There's 2 different instances of Canvas. We own a Dexter instance of Canvas, and then there is a Gradient instance of Canvas. The real difference is the color scheme. It's the biggest thing. You log into ours, maroon and gold, you log into theirs is green, right? But they both do very similar things. we've been able at Mill Creek, we've just switched over all of our programming into the Gradient instance of Canvas. So students only have to log into one place, which is really nice. They no longer have to remember 2 or 3 logins. Families, if they want to keep up on how their student is doing, they just go to Gradient instance of Canvas and they're able to see. So it's been working out really well for us in terms of having a consistent platform. At the bottom, you see a picture of the platforms. On the left is what previously we utilized with Summit, and on the right, a little bit more of a modern inspiration of what we're utilizing in Canvas. And for our high school students, I'm sure they'll tell you they're in Canvas almost every day. So it's becoming really user-friendly. So now 5th through 12th grade, we have one common LMS for all of our students, which is really nice. For those of you who have graduated students from Dexter's, many of our colleges and universities are using Canvas, so it just becomes a really seamless transition for our students. Some of the new features that we're excited about is, again, Canvas has some really great built-in LTIs and other connections that are able to give us data and analysis in ways that we previously were not able to access the data. So we're excited about the possibilities that are there. Gradient at this time is still supported by the Chan Zuckerberg initiative. So there's a lot of funds and tech mindedness in there. They have been working with us, and some of our staff have been piloting a few different AI type applications and a few different kind of future forward thinking. So our staff is going to get access to this, and as well as be able to get feedback to improve the product for future use. Things that were important to our staff when thinking about this transition, one of the greatest things that our folks, Gradient, Summit, Pinnacle, Apex, all 5th through 8th grade teachers have really valued is mentoring. Finding time one-on-one to meet with students and talk about their individual goals, aspirations, to talk about their academic goals and aspirations, to set plans with them, to make sure that they have what they need to be successful. Mentoring is still a key component in gradient and non-gradient programming across the district. Self-paced learning is something that we have come to find out has been the biggest change. And this is one that we just truly didn't understand until we got into the platform this fall. We've understood that there would still be opportunity for self-direction, students being able to pick and to do things that they liked and they were passionate about. We found that to be true. The self-paced part has definitely changed for us. Previously in Summit, students were able to move ahead a little bit faster if they were ready, or they were able to take a little bit more time if that was what was most appropriate for them. The self-paced component is no longer as prevalent in the current iteration of Gradient. Now, we don't think that's the worst thing in the world. We are still looking for, and later I'll talk to you about another opportunity, we are finding ways to do that through literacy and through math. And in fact, some feedback from our math teachers so far is the program they're using in 7th and 8th grade called Alex to do that is actually more effective than what they thought the power focus areas previously were in Summit. So all in all, it's been really great. Our teachers are champions, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The fact that they've taken on a new curricular resource, many of them, they've taken on a new platform, a new LMS, they've taken on a little bit of a new mindset of how they're doing this, and they're doing it all in stride. Our administrators have been terrific to provide support and to provide time for our staff to really work through these changes. And a big shout out to Denise Dutcher, who has taken a position based on some grant funds that we were able to allocate. Through her personalized competency-based learning position, she's really been our key go-to person for our 5th through 8th grade gradient staff. So she's been absolutely wonderful. And that's training and support something we hope to be able to continue to do. At Dexter High School, we're really proud to offer 9th grade and 8th grade studies. And in fact, Melody's here, so absolutely.
The self-paced.
Yep.
So if they advance, they just can't go behind them. Is that the deal, or what's the?
Yeah.
You say self-paced and altered. A lot of kids, I use small. Like to go natural sometimes, especially if you're playing sports, that kind of stuff, so they can get ahead. When they can get ahead, they know they're going to be doing activities. We also want people far behind either.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, but are you saying that now they're on a timeline that almost like regular regiments? I'll use work up. Well, I did use it for school, turning that every Tuesday or Thursday.
Good question. So the lessons are a little bit more structured now in terms of students aren't able to fly ahead to 8th, 9th, 12th grade math. I think there are benefits and challenges to that, to be honest. One thing we saw is we had some students working beyond hours that they should have been working on their math just to get ahead. And it kind of became a race to know. That we had no math course to offer an 8th grader who had tested out of 12th grade And really, they weren't developmentally ready for that 12th grade course. So it's definitely slowed down the advancement, but through Alex, every student is able to access math at their zone of proximal development. So students take a placement assessment and then using AI essentially is placing kids on tracks with playlists so that they have specific lessons and targeted practice where they need it right now. And these have all been built sequentially so that students get concept A before they're ready for concept B. So our teachers are finding that as opposed to students racing through power focus areas, they're really having to take the time to learn the content. So we're going deeper as opposed to just going, mile wide and an inch deep. Those power focus areas, I will say, and just like, I don't know if either of you participated in some of it, students learn to gamify and they learn to work the system. So with the power focus areas, if you're a strategic thinker, you can pass it. Whether you know the content or not, there were ways that students would be able to pass them. Marty shaking his head. Not that he ever did this, but yeah, there were ways that students could move ahead despite never having mastered the content. And it would be really hard for us on our end to know that because the assessment would show that they had passed. What we're finding with Alex is our kids really are understanding the concepts much better. And it's only been a month, so we're excited about it. Yeah, of course.
Now you want to talk about integrated studies at all?
Which is fine.
Can I ask you a question?
Please do.
What's the timeline for these changes? What's the deadline, or it's gonna take years? Kind of like
Yeah, great question. So the timeline is kind of come and gone in terms of when the changes occurred. It happened over the summer. We sat down with all of our summit staff in January this year, and we talked about what we knew at that time. And to be honest, we were getting information about 2 days before they were. We would meet with our summit representative. He would fill us in on some of the updates and changes, and then we'd relay it as quickly as we could. It wasn't until we sat down at summer training where we got the whole picture. We figured it out. In terms of staffing implications, there really hasn't been any. We were able to release the Niece of Classroom Responsibility through a grant, which you've been able to do some personalized competency-based learning coaching, which this falls under. And that grant does have a sunset. So at some point, that position will either need to be picked up by the general fund or the position will be eliminated based on the funds being gone. But otherwise, there hasn't been a huge staffing implication. I know that over at Mill Creek, they've done some shuffling of staff to make sure folks have experience on platform and off platform. And Creekside, they've been able to meet the demand of the families. So this year, they have more families that want a gradient. So Tammy worked with staff to fill those vacancies to make sure there were enough gradient classes to meet their demand. This is largely in place already. Yeah. The only thing where we're seeing a little bit of a change is teachers had an option year one to either adopt, well, they had to adopt the new LMS, Canvas. That wasn't a choice. The old LMS is gone. But Gradient and Lee gave them a choice. Year one, you can either take on the new curricular resource also, and with that will come training and support. Or if you would prefer, you can use last year's curriculum for 1 year and then phase in the new curricular resource. And most of our staff chose to just dive in. The folks that were a little nervous and reluctant, they quickly changed their mind when they found out 2 things. One is the curriculum from the last LMS didn't translate beautifully to Canvas. When we exported it and imported, there were a ton of technical errors that needed to be addressed, and they said, no, thank you. 2, when they saw how well Gradient created the modules in Canvas with quizzes already pre-made, points already pre-made, competencies already aligned, they said, boy, this is good. We'd rather just do this. So most of our staff have just chosen to dive right in the deep end, and you know that that's what they'd like to do. They want to go for it.
What's the percentage?
You know, this year,
Still like, some parents like,
honestly,
they don't understand, well, I don't understand. So yeah, you say they want the traditional method versus the
and so the interesting thing, Daniel, is I think that we have had this rhetoric as a district that there's a traditional and a non-traditional, but in reality, those are getting closer and closer alike. And some of the instructional practices we're utilizing in Gradient, we've utilized in Pinnacle and vice versa. So there's less of a difference in the programming options. Now that we're all on campus, now that we're all using similar curricular resources, the differences are much more challenging to draw up. So I think that that's going to be a bigger conversation for us moving forward and thinking about what
do have one question.
Sure.
Right before we get to.
Yeah,
integrated
of course.
studies. On the Canvas, on the LMS. I know from previous experience, myself in grad school and my son in high school, the Canvas can be kind of customized.
Yep.
And look different for each teacher. And sometimes, maybe more for parents than kids, it's a little confusing sometimes to find things or in a consistent way from class to class. Are there any standards now that it's being rolled out to the younger ages, that the configurations are somewhat consistent
Yeah,
as they get, you know, at least in their grade and then move up into high school, that it's a familiar looking feel versus a completely different structure that how information is stored?
yeah, I'm glad you asked that. You're absolutely right. And so with our gradient classes in particular, Gradient has really dictated how the modules will look. So their team of engineers have put together, and essentially what we do is it's called blueprinting. We take their content, we overlay it with our class. And the really nice thing is as they update something, hey, the points were run on this quiz, it automatically pushes to our teachers' modules. They're constantly updated in real time. In terms of our non-gradient use of Canvas, that's an opportunity that we're taking on this year and in the next year to come. We found that we brought on Canvas during the pandemic. We tried to organize our learning. And in an effort to get kids content quickly, we missed the mark of it in terms of being able to have a consistent platform usage and like user experience. I will say that depending on who your teacher is, your user experience may be a little different in Canvas. We're trying, I'm sure both of you could share that, it just happens. We are working with our teams to create a more common experience for our students, so it's a little bit more seamless.
The impact, if any, is there on what comes step with the LDA or stuff?
I think this year would be too early to tell in terms of the impact, but we've really been impressed by all of our 5th through 8th grade, and in a meeting to come when Dr. Timmons comes back, I look forward to celebrating our MSTEP data with you all. But we've long seen an incredible thing that happens in our 5th through 8th grade data where our students just take off. And I think it is representative of the amazing work that we're doing in young 5th through 4th grade, as well as the great teaching that's occurring in 5th through 8th. So I'm not concerned about data. I think when we think about those student outcomes and we think about those larger skills, those are the things that are going to help students on standardized tests. Those are the things that are going to help students on long-term goals.
One thing we used to worry about was just timing, some test versus what. Trying to learn one.
Yeah, that's always going to be a little bit of a challenge. I will say the new curricular resources, Dick, are better for that because last iteration of Summit, when it was Summit, was actually on California curriculum. Their timeline and their content standards were just different enough that it did cause a little bit of a hiccup. There were concepts in 7th grade that we actually should have been teaching in 6th grade and vice versa. We worked to realign those things, but it was never quite perfect. The new resources are Common Core aligned, so that should be an issue. All right, now we'll move on. The great studies. She hasn't even seen this slide, but she's
So last year, about half of our 9th grade students had the opportunity to be in integrated studies. The structure in our 9th grade classes is that there's really 2 teams of teachers. And but this year, all of our students, not just half of the freshman class, but all of our students have the opportunity to have integrated studies. It's a great time for freshman students to have a non-content heavy class. Instead, having a time to self-actualize, look at themselves, how they study, how to adjust to high school life, not just the curriculum, but how to be a high schooler. So I know these last few weeks, the integrated study teachers have really been getting into who are you as a learner, how do you learn, and how are you going to learn best here in high school, as well as take tours around the school, get to know key staff members. Mrs. Hervey, Mrs. Holland, and myself, we were able to go into every single integrated studies class over 2 days last week to introduce ourselves and meet every single 9th grader. So that was impactful, not just for them, but for us too, so that we can have face-to-face conversation with our freshmen. And again, it's really a time for them to learn who they are as learners so that it can positively impact all of their classes.
think we're trying to capitalize on a lot of the things that help make us so successful in fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. It's just a nice transition into high school, and integrated studies and the two teachers that Melanie has identified to lead integrated studies are just terrific. They've been doing this and they are using a curricular resource as a supplemental resource called Wayfinder. Wayfinder is really cool. It is a wealth and just an incredible resource bank of tons of different social emotional learning activities that the teacher can sort based on competency, based on type of activity, based on how much time they have in the day. They can literally plug in and say, I have 10 minutes, I want to do a team building exercise, and they'll give them 5 different ideas. They've curated playlists. We have a consultant that they can reach out to and say, hey, we're about to do this unit in ELA. Can you help us think of some great lessons? And they'll curate a playlist. It integrates into Canvas. So just great feedback from our 9th graders that it's a really positive time of their day.
Just sit with all the kids, sit all 9th graders. You said they have the opportunity. Does that mean they're all?
Yes, all 9th graders were scheduled into an integrated studies class this year.
Alternate programs.
So we don't have any alt ed students at the 9th grade level. All students are at DHS as 9th graders. I should say with the exception of ECA, WAVE, which they're still Dexter Community School students, but they're not at Dexter High School. So if they are enrolled in the WAVE program or the early College Alliance at Eastern, they are not, because they're not on our campus.
Thanks. Two grants that you heard a little bit about last year, but I was asked to give a quick update on. One was 23G, and that was our Get Our Michigan Kids Back on Track grant. This is one that we've been able to utilize for after-school tutoring facilitated by DCS staff. We have been doing our summer tutoring air reading for over 150 students, 75 last summer, 75 this upcoming summer. We just did a data analysis of how our kiddos did from spring to fall that did air reading, and again, another positive year. We've been able to work to identify Ms. Dutcher as our personalized competency-based learning MTSS coordinator. She switched over mid-year last year, so 23, and then up through the upcoming school year, she'll be able to fill that role. It's all grant funded. We've been able to hire a MTSS, a multi-tier support system, paraprofessional at Creekside. Creekside is a building that traditionally has not had an interventionist, a designated reading interventionist like we do at young 5th through 4th grade. So the partnership between Ms. Dutcher and then our paraprofessional at Creekside, we've been able to get to more kids who need support to make sure that they have exactly what they need in the moment they need it. I already talked a little bit about Alex Math at Mill Creek. Again, that's that differentiated math program where students are able to access learning at their level. And then MAP Accelerator is a similar math program that we're offering at 5th and 6th grade, where based on students' NDVA scores, they're given curated playlists for math to help them with where they are at their moment in time. On the left, I have just a pyramid of multi-tier support system. I was talking to an individual the other day, and I realized we were using some terminology we maybe haven't talked about. I'd be happy to go further detailed another time, but essentially thinking about multi-tier support system, ensuring that every student has what they need to be successful. And in theory, and knowing that what we're doing for all students should be effective for roughly 80% of our students without additional support or intervention. And that would be representative of some great tier 1 instruction, we call it. Knowing that some of our students are going to benefit from some additional support, whether it be from a mentor, a coach, an interventionist, and then we are going to have students that are going to need some really intense individualized supports. And that looks in a lot of different ways in our organization, but it's a way that we work to think about structures and programming, not necessarily kids. It's not about kids, it's about how we can best support and meet the needs of our learners. On the right there, you'll see a screenshot, kind of work to redact some data on there. But we have been putting a lot of time and energy, and some of it has been through some grant funding to Schoolitics. Schoolitics is a data analytic platform that we have worked to pull in all of the dozens of data sources we use as an organization into one spot. So a teacher can go in and get every piece of data they would need about their learner. Schoolitics does 2 really cool things for us. One is it gives us access to some great graphs and helps us understand where we are as an organization, thinking about those tier 1 decisions. And 2, we're able to log interventions and supports. In an organization where there are a lot of transitions, different buildings, it's really important to know what kind of support a student may benefit from or what kind of universal supports they would need to be successful. And so having a digital history and a digital log helps us ensure that all of our students are successful. We have until this upcoming fall to spend out that grant. 35J was the other big grant. This was roughly $460,000 that came to us for professional development, curriculum and supports. This is essentially your science of reading grant through the state of Michigan. As you all know and remember, we were a little ahead of the game. So we started our curriculum review and we actually made our big curriculum purchase before this grant came out. So yay for us, a challenge that we couldn't recoup any of those expenses, right? So we had to think strategically about what are we going to do with these funds to make the most meaningful use of them. One of the big things we were able to do is hire a literacy coach at Creekside. We haven't had a designated coach at Creekside to provide literacy support for 5th and 6th grade, so we've been able to do that. Part of the grant, it also entails that we'll have a curriculum review at Creekside. So while we did that at Young 5 through 4th grade, we have not yet done it in 5th and 6th. Maureen Clyde is filling that literacy coach role, and myself will be facilitating that curriculum review in 5th and 6th grade. We're in year 2 of bookworms at kindergarten through 2nd grade, and being a reader, being a writer at 3rd and 4th. There was an updated being a writer curriculum that came out this year. As part of our purchase last year, they sent us all updated copies with all the new materials, and we're getting training in October on that. So teachers had access to asynchronous training over the summer, and then they'll have a live in training in October. We have been able to continue our coaching support, professional development, and we actually have 2 on-site coaches coming for being a reader and for bookworms. Our teachers have loved that. They love when the literacy consultant is able to come into their class, give them some really specific targeted feedback. That's one of their favorite activities to be able to do. And we often pair that with a professional development day. So in October, our consultant will come on Thursday, they'll tour classrooms, coach staff, and then on Friday, when we have our PD, they'll just be able to build it. Part of our grant also states that all our staff will get trained in reading science. So professional development opportunities, we've been offering 3 different pathways for our staff. We have roughly 140 to 150 teaching staff that work in young 5s through 6th grade. So anywhere from a 3rd grade teacher to a 5th grade art teacher to the 6th grade band teacher to your 2nd grade administrator. Of those 150 people, not all of them are teaching literacy. So think about how many people are actually teaching literacy. But the really exciting thing is over 70 of those staff members have been or will complete letters training. We talked about letters previously, kind of like the gold standard in terms of phonemic awareness and phonics. So we have a huge portion of our ELA teaching staff will have that letters credential, which is just tremendous. It's really exciting for us. Through this grant, we've been able to offer a nice stipend to honor the time commitment that our teachers are putting in for that work. We've been able to expand the cadence assessment to Wiley. This is an assessment tool that we have been utilizing at young 5 through 2nd grade. We find the predictability, reliability are much higher than some of the other assessments we previously utilized. So by expanding to 3rd and 4th grade, again, we're setting a better finger on our pulse of what the needs of our learners are. We've also been working to purchase supplemental materials, grades K through 4. As you all remember, we brought to the board, one of our programs there were some concerns about a few of the titles in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These were known concerns, and we told you we had a plan to address it. And we have addressed it. We've replaced those titles, we've replaced those lessons. So over the summer, we made about $12,000 of purchase of additional supplemental books through this grant to take those books that were problematic and take them off the shelf, putting some really great books in their place. So our teachers had time to plan those lessons, to teach their colleagues those lessons, and then we now have the books in the classrooms to replace those lessons. That was really exciting to be able to do that. And then otherwise, we have a lot of great literacy initiatives going on across the district, and we're continuing to find ways. In the next couple of weeks, Christy and I will sit down with this 35J. We're at the midway point of this grant spend down, and so we have to actually provide some documentation and apply for the year 2 funding to come. So we'll submit to the state a list of all of our staff, where they are in their training process. We'll also have an opportunity to revise our budget. We set the budget last year, making our best guess how many staff are actually going to do training A, which pays a stipend of Y, versus how many staff are going to do the other training opportunity, which pays a stipend of Z. Now we know those numbers, so we can work to get a more accurate calculation, so we can make sure that we're spending and maximizing this grant best for our community. All in all, we see grants like this being a potentially a cost savings of 6 figures for the district. We're able to reallocate some funds to purchase things that we would have purchased.
The majority of the school employees, new staff, something else.
For this particular grant?
Grant for a couple.
Yeah, so 23G, we were able to bring on 2 new staff members, a paraprofessional and 1 teaching professional. Both of those positions, there's an understanding that there's a sunset with the fund, so as the grant spends out, those positions will as well. With 35J, we have a half-time literacy coach coming on, so not as big of an expense as we would expect. A lot of it has been going for materials and licenses. So previously, Daniel had asked about like kids being able to access curriculum at their own pace. I talked a little bit about Alex and Map Accelerator. We have an equivalent in literacy. It's called Lexia. So all of our kindergarten through 6th grade students have a license to Alexia where they're able to get reading differentiated for them. They'll have that. They had it last year, they'll have it this year, and they'll have it next year as well. It's really great too, because we purchased some additional licenses for students in alternative education, students at Mill Creek, students at the high school. Any student who would benefit from some reading support at their targeted level, we can offer.
With the short-term expiration on licenses. Is that a lot?
We are going to have, if Lexia is something that we would like to make part of our long-term programming, we're going to have to sit down and figure out how to make it be part of our building district budget. But for these 3 years, we've been able to charge it to the
Like we had a chance to get school nurse. Yeah, for a couple of years funded. Ended up switching to figure out keep going.
Sometimes those things happen.
Is this just for early elementary?
Yeah, great question. So the funds need to be spent in pre-K through 5th grade. So I've said K6 a few times tonight. It's really challenging to have a 5-6 building when you have a K5 grade. You can't tell half the building, hey, y'all, sorry, you're not getting any. So we've just understood as an organization, we are going to offer anything to our 6th grade teachers that we would have offered to our 5th grade, but we'll just have to absorb those costs through general fund. But it's absolutely the right thing to do. I mean, if we're going to look at our 5th grade ELA, we might as well be looking at our 6th grade ELA. So just a quick taste of some of the things we've been doing in curriculum instruction. Yeah.
You don't have to answer it now. With the new reading writing program?
Yeah.
This is our 2nd full year, we start 3rd year?
This would be year 2.
Okay, so when, I think too early to look at trends and that was what they about. Well, I'm talking about 50 ways that they always zoom up, but that was a kind of wild time here. And we pick up.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll be able to? I know.
7 years from
I'm not
now.
gonna put a date.
So in terms of MSTEP data, it is going to take us a few years to see MSTEP data. Earlier this year, we did a presentation about some of the reading data, and I can reshare that if you'd like. But when we look at obedience measures and NWA, we are already seeing a slight uptick in those K4 based on the assessment. So we won't be able to see it in 3rd grade yet because students that are going to get K through 3, they won't take that assessment for a few more years now. But I do have access to data that we can look year to year. So for instance, our 1st grade class last year, after 1 year of kindergarten in our previous instructional practices, our previous strategies, we were sending roughly 60% of our kids at or above grade level to the 1st grade. This next year, new cohort of kids, right? So a different variable, new curricular resource, new training, new instructional practices. This last year, we sent 75% of our kids to 1st grade at or above grade level, right? So that feels good. 15 percentage points up feels good. Based on the obedience measure, which has a higher predictability and a higher reliability than some of the tools previously.
The teachers and parents. Parents, I don't really.
I think so. I think folks are really coming to like it. Like anything new, change is hard, right? You learn the program, you know it like the back of your hand. But more and more as we went through the year, teachers were really starting to see the payoff and the benefit. Even some of our teachers that were reluctant, I'll say, or a little bit more hesitant, now that they have kids coming in their class that have a full year of it under their belt, they're saying, oh yeah, this is a different 1st grader than I previously had. This is a different type of sector previously had. So in the next 3 to 5 years, I'd love to be able to show you and hopefully we'll be able to celebrate some of that MSTEP data. But in the short term, I won't have that.
But 2 MSTEP, the data you're seeing internally.
Seems good. Seems very positive.
You'll know what this year it's.
Absolutely.
It works like it will be 2 years.
I think so. All right.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. I appreciate it. My pleasure.
Quick comment.
Yep.
You and I have had some conversations recently about testing, particularly the MSTEP, and one of the things I hadn't thought about, I think really was interesting, not to diminish the value of all the different comparisons grade to grade, but ultimately, we're looking to see how the student comes out. And it would appear that we may do extremely well at the higher end of the testing. It means that the whole sequencing of our educational process is giving us maybe better results than some of the individual pieces look like and what other schools get.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Dick, we'll do a full M-step review with the board. Dr. Timmons did request to be back. He wanted to be part of that celebration as well. So we'll have an opportunity to do that. Hopefully in the months to come. What's that? Oh, yeah, definitely.
But the main point I want to make is really, if you look at the end product, that maybe has more weight than the individual pieces to get there. And if we're doing top of the line there, it's less reason to question how we're getting there. Not that we can't always look for proof. It's interesting to see what the final product is. Those 6% periods.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we are now at our first opportunity for public participation. Each speaker is allotted a maximum of 5 minutes for a total of approximately 30 minutes unless otherwise notified. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? We'll move right on to superintendent update then. First up, we have an update on hiring status.
We are still looking at hiring educators, lunch masters, bus drivers, custodians, ground, and food nutrition and Jenkins. So all of our hourly positions, we are still hiring.
And how about facilities and project status?
So a lot of things are happening. Hello, everyone. So projects are rolling. I'll just kind of go through doors and hardware. There are a lot of like closing things out, just finishing those up, tagging them. They had some doors they measured a couple inches too short, some a couple too long. So they're resizing the doors, getting here to make sure they're all set and work, all ready to go, finishing up the last little bits of Creekside windows as well. Flex space, Dexter High School, if you haven't been, looks beautiful in there. They put the sliders in the other day. We're waiting for the glass, put the glass in the windows, finish those up. So there's some little nuts and bolts pieces. Same thing with the furniture. There's a couple of desk chairs, captain's chairs they didn't have done. So just a bunch of checklists we're going through that space. So it looks awesome. It's ready to go. So I can't wait to see Melanie put it in full use when the time comes. So
For integrated studies all last week.
So yeah, so they're turning into a great space. See more and more kids in there all the time using it. We just got to figure out a way to use that outdoor space a little bit more while we still can. Right? Get kids out there using that space. So it's wonderful. Building management systems are going great. There are some tweaks that had to happen. They put in some of the units in some rooms of Wiley, 90 degrees off. So when they set them to open, they actually close. When they're set to close, they open. So they came in, all those tweaks and stuff are making them work at Wiley and Creekside right now to get those systems done. We worked with our commissioning agent to also get rebates to make sure they were done right. So we're going to get over $80,000 worth of rebates back from DTE because of some of the other upgrades we put in. We put about $3,000 more of just initial tweaks to make sure we can get the energy saving the rebates from them. So for that few thousand, 80,000 back is a pretty good deal. So, yep, it'll go back into there. Absolutely. It's what money was spent for. That's where it'll go back into. Next step for the automation system is the high school. That's something that we knew that they were going to be doing during the school year. So now they're working on weekends at night to get into those pieces, get stuff ready, set to go to transition back to high school as well. This weekend, if you're around Mill Creek, you would have seen the big crane come in and set the 60-ton chiller in at Mill Creek. So that'll be nice to get that in and running. The guys from WJ O'Neill did a great job getting it all set. It should be plug and play. So hopefully within a few weeks that'll be set and done. To check that off the box. That's all set. I'm really looking to check things off the box. That's there. Yeah, Craig's been feisty, so no more money from the district going until I get some things done. So they've heard my message loud and clear. Pool, water will be in it. Kids will be swimming by October 7th. That is a deadline. We're hoping by the 4th is what we're pushing. Like we're telling them what we need, and but 7th is what we're shooting for. That Monday, water and kids swimming. So because of that, we are going to push a few things out. They just to grout the whole pool and acid wash it. They were telling me it's going to be longer than that. I'm like, because of the rush, number one, to try and get it done, the fact that they waited long with scrambling, I think it's going to be better for us to do the repairs we need to now to get water in the pool, get it all set. drain it again next summer, we can have time to get better, bidding on it. I think it'll actually be cheaper to wait and do it, and they're just not stressed at the time. We need the swimmers back in the pool, so we're gonna make it work, so it doesn't need swimmers in the pool. Yeah, we need swimmers in the pool. Solar field, we're still waiting. There's one last connection for the tech piece. We can get the dashboard. It is generating power. Again, lovely DTE. We're still waiting for them to give us our final check. Power is going back to us from the grid, so it's working well. The dashboard piece, it's one more. Rick and them are working to make sure it plugs, so I can come here. I can be Ryan, show a fancy presentation. I tell him he does wonderful. I got a sticky note. That we could show the dashboard of the savings we have to share with the team. That is also our other goal that's there. Good things though, if you haven't been to the high school gym, check out the gym floor. Looks awesome in there, really does look beautiful. That's there. Stadium lights are all set, repaired, so that safety piece is all said and done. So I feel very good about the lights happening there. Goats did a great job eating poison ivy behind Creekside, so now I just need staff to use it. If staff use that area, we'll keep bringing the goats back. If it doesn't, then we won't bring the goats back. But it's a nice, good little way to make it work. So
Nice picture of that stuff there's times.
yeah.
People get kicked out.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's just, and if it works and staff use it, then it's an awesome. It's a great way to be kind of the energy piece, or not energy, just better use of making it work. Yeah, I don't know about innovative or not. Goat's been around for a while, Dick.
Not schools use it.
Yeah, not schools using them though. You got it there. So realistically, that thing's working well. Our B&G staff has just been trying to also scramble through everything, right, making sure it works through a few staffing shortages we have. Keep things clean, keep things up to speed, going through that FMX. Staff have been really good about making it work. Quad fields out there, we're aerating, overseeding them right now. We're probably shutting half of them down right now, so we get the grass on it, fertilized, aerated, water them during the day, so we can get the really quiet fields. I know Little League softball's been wanting that a little bit, so we're putting a little love into there as well. Those projects, and the next thing was bond steering committee. That's going well. So our third meeting is tomorrow. So the group's been doing a wonderful job of being part of it, of listening to the documents and kind of making some plans, looking to move forward. The last time the architects from TMP brought out some suggestions based on what they feel. The group felt like, oh, this is important to us. So let's put some things out there just as ideas and options, just to get people thinking. Again, it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of what we're seeing of what happens. So tomorrow again is the next step of really kind of coming to some more consensus for the group, to like directions. Is it new? Is it a big new? Is it a couple new? Is it keep things running? Where does it look, and where do we as a committee want to go? Our next step path of that would be getting to using the programming and the facility to see where we are, just to kind of put some dollars to really kind of puzzle piece to see what we can. Right, we want to be very conscious of our community and make sure we'll stay the same, what we're getting and what we get for our house, and what's better moving forward. So the committee has worked that's moved along. Gail's done a good job. The group and people that have been here been part of it. The people involved have been great. So it's been a good, really good. And our transport update as well. There you go. Switch hands, turn it this way. Here we go. Really no transport zones working well. I think people, there were a few comments the first days, but kids are getting to school. They're walking. We got bike racks. Bike racks be delivered tomorrow. So we're putting together another, I think, 5 or 6 racks. Creekside, Mill Creek. I think it's at the deck to make there's just more racks for kids to put bikes in. Kids are using them. We'll keep bringing the racks to make them to work. Questions as always. The first 2 weeks are always wonky here, right? First week, who is riding the bus, who isn't riding the bus. The second week is 7th grade camp, so Big Beach kids aren't riding the bus. So to know, Deneen and Lori do a really good job of, the first week, we always have extra buses there in case the bus is overloaded. We can put kids on a bus at least so they're not overloaded. But what that also means is we have to make changes on the fly. We have had to take some neighborhoods and go, we can take from this and work, but this section of the neighborhood is going to have to start at this time. Wait a minute, that's 20 minutes earlier than what, and I get it. It's, each family, it's my freeze drill force analogy, right? Parents care very deeply about their kid. Wait a minute, it's a change for me and my family. How is it? It's, as Deneen and Lori do a good job of looking at the whole district about how it works for busing, to get kids the shortest ride on the bus as possible, to get them to school, get everybody to school safely, not on overloaded buses, and to make it. So Deneen and Lori are doing a tremendous job for, the nice part is for as much you know, the problems and solutions they have. We also have some community members that reach out to and say, thank you so much for all of your hard work, right? And I know that means a lot to Denise and Lori, just for how hard they work to make sure everybody is safe. You've heard me say it before, our transportation department is one of the top departments in the state. People contacted me and Lori about how are you training your drivers? How are you keeping them safe? What do you think we should do? They are that high level, so they'll never put a driver behind the seat of our bus, the driver's seat that's not highly qualified, ready to go. Doesn't pass its everything. So it's going well. I mean, right now things are grooving, things are moving. Kids are walking. Kids are fine, and I'm, yep, it's good.
It's getting darker pretty soon, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Safety.
Yep.
Charge for parents.
We will, I haven't heard anything yet from it. We have our lights, you know, if there's lights that are issues of working or not, they're on 24/7. I'm not gonna not have lights on, you know, the ones behind, if you drive by Albert at night now, you'll see those lights around all the time. So it's our goal to make sure things are lit up, safe and ready to go. Hope and her team did a great job of putting up with where to walk and where to cross. So put that information out there, it's there. I have had people go, I've seen kids crossing the street here, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I can't chase every white rabbit, you know, what they do or don't do. So, same thing, it's a shift for our staff though too. At some points, the Creekside students, instead of coming out of the building, going left to the crosswalk, there are kids that went right. People are like, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? There are crosswalks at the roundabout to get kids up to Walkabout Creek. So they know their routes and they're safe. I think our families have done a great job showing students their routes. A lot of families, you know, really have put that responsibility on their kids. In the long run, I think it's a good thing for them, right? That to have that responsibility. Right now, it's easy though. 80 degrees, sunny, the sun's out, right? When it's 10 degrees out, right, it's out there. So, you know, keeping the lighting on is important. So we'll keep an eye on everything that's outside, keeping that lit. You know, the one area we do look at, and we've looked at it, put some bids out, we haven't moved forward, is that spot between Shield Road and Dexter High School where you kind of walk there through the woods. Currently, there's no lights through there right now. You know what I'm talking in? Yeah, across the bridge through there. So if you ever walk that way home from a football game, if you park over there in the high school, if you walk back from a football game at night, you do need your phone. Typically, it should be lit up enough for students during the school day. I'll keep an eye on that as they get started, especially for those high school students walking.
Thanks so much. All right, and then we have an SCAB update.
All right, brief this one. As last year, you all recall, we reestablished our CEB, our Sex Ed Advisory Board. We had over 50 applicants for 18 positions, which was just absolutely wonderful. Those 18 members, we have 2 co-chairs, Anne Prashant and Kristen Zurich. Both are staff members here in the Dexter Community Schools. One is a parent of the child in the district, one is not, which are the requirements of the co-chairs. I serve as supervisor of that board. With our membership, we worked last year to establish bylaws. We really worked to create some group agreements and norms, which was, as you imagine, a really important step in a group that's working in a topic that is sensitive in nature, to make sure we have some working agreements. One of our first things that we worked to do is we said we really need to survey our community and our students to figure out where we're at and what our next steps need to be. We worked to create a survey, and then we administered said survey, and then worked to analyze the data of the survey, which was absolutely fascinating. Throughout that process, we worked with a consultant who is a health consultant for WISD as well as Livingston County, named Danielle Drost. She was a huge resource for us. She showed us 3 or 4 different curriculum review tools, as well as 3 or 4 popular curriculum resources that are currently being utilized. We had an opportunity to work with all of our 4th through 12th grade health teachers to really best understand from the front line, what are the things that are working really well and where do we need to consider some changes. We took all the information and kind of made a plan for this upcoming year, which was exciting. Part of our plan was to do a thorough review of the curricular resources that we're currently utilizing, as well as potentially some modifications. So whether it's being able to supplement or maybe potentially a new curricular resource as well, we wanted to explore those options. The team is eager and excited to meet. We're working to schedule our first meeting in October. We need to provide ample time for membership as well as the community to attend if they would like. We had 3 members step back from their role on the CEB
So one was our senior representative who has since graduated and very sweet. She asked, can I still sit on the CF? I enjoyed it so much. I'll come back from Michigan State on the Wednesdays. And we said, go be a college student. Don't worry about us. But it's very thoughtful person. We are going to be looking to recruit a sophomore student to replace as our sophomore stepped up to junior status, junior down to senior. That way they'll be in for CF for 3 years. We had 2 members at large also step back and say, thank you so much, but the time commitment or where they were in life just didn't work out, which I completely honor and understand. We will open up an application process, so an update will come out through the superintendent's office to the community where folks will have the opportunity to express interest. As I shared, we only took 18 people. We had over 50 applicants, so there's a lot of interest out there. There are people that definitely want to participate, and then we'll work to target sophomores at Dexter High School because we only need a sophomore students this moment in time. As you remember, when we recreated the CF, replacing vacancies is a little more nuanced because there are certain roles that people have to fill. If we lost a clergy person who also happens to be a parent, and then we have to find someone who checks enough boxes, right? So it's a little bit of a puzzle when thinking about how to replace these folks. And then there are certain pieces that we're going to have to make sure that we offer. This upcoming year, like I shared, we will be doing a pretty comprehensive curricular review that will come to the Board of Education. And you all will have final say in whatever the next step may be. Part of the CF responsibility is also provided by a biennial report. We were not prepared to do that last year in year 1, so you will get that report this upcoming year 2. That will really give a comprehensive summary of where we are at as an organization. So to summarize, applications will be open. We'll be looking for 3 new members to join our team, and meetings will resume this fall.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, guys, board president update. I have 2 things. First, I want to remind everyone that there is a candidate forum for the open positions that are on ballot. It is going to be Wednesday at 7 p.m. here in the Bates conference room. Our student representatives will be joining us and helping host that event. And just to clarify, we are recording it and it will be available for people to watch later on if you're asked. Second, I attended the WASB legislative breakfast this morning. Our state Congress will be back in session on Wednesday, and so there was a impetus to hurry up and meet with everybody. It was actually very well attended by all of the representatives and senators, and we had a chance to talk through school funding in general, where more money can come from, the categoricals that the schools don't like. We talked about the dyslexia bill, about special ed staffing challenges. We were able to share with them our county's special ed millage and the sort of impact on our districts if the millage were to not be renewed. I actually thought it was a really great conversation, and the elected representatives were very interested in hearing specific feedback from the schools, and our collective districts were able to provide them with specific stories and examples about how some of these changes would impact the districts. So I actually thought it was very productive. And how about our student representatives? What updates do you guys have for us?
Prior notes that all the states are doing spirit weeks and a parade, assemblies on Friday, and then of course the dance again on Saturday. Also in the high school, we started an advisory. We only had 1 meeting so far, so I don't know, but it'll look like I did it, but that's going on. And also leaders working on their Zoom production, so that should.
Evening, everybody. This last Friday was the Abby Tamer honoring night. That was really cool. Just to see how the community kind of came together to honor her. As Dexter was kind of first. Pretty cool night. The shirts were very nice. I don't wear mine a lot, but yeah, it was super cool. Field hockey doesn't usually get the big Friday night lights kind of thing, so it's cool to see them get represented that way. I'm sure they had a lot of fun there, especially against Chelsea. We beat them up pretty good, so I don't care that they didn't have the goalie. It's their fault. That's pretty cool. So than that, I am very excited for the candidate forum on Wednesday, very excited to host that. I did see some comment of no gotcha questions, which is unfortunate. Funny, but you know what? I think it's fair and reasonable, so I'll live with that, I guess. Other than that, you know, senior life, very busy. Yeah, something going on every single day this week. Just how I like it, but very busy. Got a bunch of college stuff on. Sports, big, huge win in football the other night. We got a huge win in Skyline. This week, that'll be exciting. I've heard the sports doing great. Cross country, I know, shaping out to be pretty good. One of our top runners, my bot, just broke through the 16-minute threshold, so he's got a PR of 15:48, which is
Fast.
That's fast. So that's really exciting for him. But other than that, golf team. Women's golf team, yeah, they're very competitive this year. Don't know too much about golf, but I see they're probably good. SEC. Oh, they are. Okay. That's really exciting.
That's great. I'm just curious, how does advisory fit in your schedules? Is it for all grades?
It is for all grades. It's set into like Friday assembly schedule, so it's like how the assembly. His third hour has to be. So they did.
So like one block is short and then
All the blocks are.
all blocks are.
They're really figuring out kind of to the goal right now with what advisory wants to be. I know the squall, the Dexter High School organized papers, there's a whole story about it, what it's supposed to look like. Some people argue that it's meant to be kind of community building. Some people think it should just be designated study time, but there are a lot of arguments for both sides across the whole thing. You know, community building, it's great for those younger classes like freshmen, sophomores, but senior. The community building's kind of already happened over time. But then again, you can also be used to it for college apps, but then again, freshmen have graded studies. Wouldn't really work out as much for them, so maybe it's something they change that well, but there's only one meeting so far, they're really just working through it, so there's gonna definitely be a lot of changes to advisory. I know they tried this my freshman year. They did it once, we never went back again, so we're gonna see if that happens again, but no, I think they're very confident that advisory's gonna stay this time. I know they wanna make it almost like a 5-week thing, which that would be exciting to see. I was with Coach Jacobs in the weight room, so that was kind of fun. But you know, I think that could be something that should to our students.
Moving on to consent items. Budget report. Items. Board of Education received August 21 budget report. Support. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to action items. Have an ability to certify the MASB delegates for the leadership conference. Are any of us able to attend or planning to attend that conference this year?
Just saying that's same week as the Dexter Chelsea football game in Meadow. But because it's in Lansing, I have no problem driving up there on Thursday.
Me. And was anyone else planning to?
I actually like it. I think it's cool.
It is,
but
it's very fun. I'm out of town personally, so.
I'm out of town.
I think that we need to certify delegates tonight, right? Isn't it like a October, like 4th?
Yeah, I was thinking that. I thought Jennifer said she might be interested. And you have to go. So she wanted to make.
Okay. So. Yeah, if anyone wants to do it, or if you want to be. I'm happy to name.
I
names if
I
we
will,
include
I
people.
would do it because I would rather us be represented than not. I'm willing to.
And the question is, will we make the title of the session?
So this session, the leadership conference is the entire weekend. The annual meeting is just Thursday night, and that is when districts do have the opportunity to vote on bylaws, yeah, and policy changes and things like that. So that
Or
meeting
they-
is only Thursday night.
But I'll move that, Laura and Jennifer be certified to represent, Dexter, in 2024 MASC delegate summit.
That's my wife.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
And because it's an action item, let's do the roll call vote.
Albright.
Aye.
Arnold.
Aye.
Aye.
Strader.
Yes.
Aye. Next, we have fund balance designations. Our packet includes financial information from CFO Christy Beakey, including ending reserves, designations, assigned and unassigned fund balances for the year ending June 30th, 2024. Fund balance designations were recommended by the Finance Committee on September 9th, 2024.
That the Board of Education approve the 23-24 fund balance designations for the general fund as included in the attached recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? These are the designations as we typically do every year, and I appreciate the executive summary and information provided. Let's do a roll call, vote, please.
Mr. Arnold.
Aye.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Lundy.
Aye.
Sawyer's.
Aye.
Albright.
Okay.
I'll just remind us, the reason that we do this, the way we do it, I'm not sure if this do, is by moving this now, it gets into the audit report for last year. And so the actual balance sheet that people see is correct. You don't do it till later, the numbers never show up because they're updated later than every year. It's part of the transparency.
Okay, we have one discussion item tonight. That is information in your packet about an insulin lawsuit. Entities nationwide started joining a nationwide lawsuit against various insulin manufacturers, pharmacy benefit managers, and other defendants accused of artificially inflating insulin prices at the expense of employers and health plan entities, including insurance groups. Lawsuit defendants include, among others, Eli Lilly and Company, Novo Nordisk Incorporated, and Sanofi Aventis US LLC. Those entities eligible to join the lawsuit include any self-insured employer, any employer that contributed to employee medical benefit plan costs or other healthcare costs, and any insurance. France Law Group, a California law firm specializing in mass litigation, is representing entities in the insulin litigation. France requested that Truden Law Firm determine whether its clients are interested in joining the insulin litigation, and if so, to facilitate contact with France. Research reveals that some insulin prices have increased by more than 1,000% over the past 20 years. Health insurance companies passed on the cost of those price increases to employers through higher insurance premiums. The insulin litigation seeks monetary compensation for past damages incurred by entities related to the artificial insulin price inflation, as well as injunctive relief to stop that inflation and additional damages to defer future similar behavior. Your packet includes a draft resolution from Truden Law authorizing the district to join the lawsuit. This item is presented for discussion only this evening. Barb, do you have any more you want to contribute?
Yeah, so Truden sent information about this litigation. I attended the meeting that they held 2 weeks ago. Learned some interesting facts about insulin. It costs these companies about $3 to $5 per vial to manufacture. They sell it for about $35 in countries all over the world. Here in the US, they sell it between $300 and $700 per vial. And all three of those companies have an agreement that they sell them for the same price, so it doesn't matter who you get it from. There's making a lot of money off of people who need this. It's,
Do we know what our projected outcome would be, what our share would be, what are they seeking? Do we know any of that?
I know, high level, they already had a class action lawsuit and the judge threw that out because the financial compensation was pennies. So they now moved to this, and they are also looking, in addition to the price gouging, they are also looking at charges. So we as a district, if we choose to join this, will not have to testify the original complaints of this, which I believe are in New Jersey. They are the ones that will find me and others across the U.S.
The resolution references an attorney client in the contract. Do we have a copy of that?
It is, yes, and it's the same as it's been for the other. So should we do that?
So the amounts are
It's
the same.
it's 30% that's.
So this will come back and we're gonna think about it, and just to be super clear, the reason we can join this is because we offer health insurance to our employees. So while it doesn't pertain to education, we are clarifying,
Our premium, we probably check that.
yes,
So
yes.
For how long, how back we cover our.
I know that the pharmacy managers are also part of this lawsuit. They allegedly have been taking tax from these manufacturers. Yes. That. Us.
Outside.
No, and we can withdraw at any time and it doesn't cost us anything up until if there is a financial resolution. Of it, but we can withdraw at any time. It doesn't cost us anything.
Thank you for the information. We are at our second opportunity for public participation. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? And board comments.
Great, that it was.
Well,
Exactly.
well,
Yeah, very well. We should. More to. Some of the. Some of the sports that do very, very well.
Not high.
Not high profile.
So the attorneys that do the work.
Let me say about that. What was really exciting was kids that were lining up. Get their autograph afterwards.
Oh my
You
gosh,
saw
yeah.
that? Yeah, you saw it.
Yeah.
One kid came out of that, we were all excited. She signed my sneakers, she signed my sneakers. Signing t-shirts, the line was steady, I just walked out there to some point. It was already through the end and the state that way from little boys and girls. And I think some adults run too. So kudos to have I don't think it was not kudos to him for I'm always ready to but kudos for that. There's a sense of everybody else who claimed they are, but those are really, it's really great, that nice to see.
Chris would see that they got the future.
Anybody else? Okay, we have finance minutes as information items in our packet. We do not have a closed session tonight. And so we are going to adjourn, and I would love to get a picture of the board before the road scoots on. Guys, thank you. Yeah, wherever you want. Thanks everyone for your attention.